apologies if there's still an issue with the sound. I was aware in my previous video the volume was very low, so I've now clipped the microphone up higher, so I'm going to see how it sounds this time and take it from there. So before we delve into and continue the book Karma, perhaps take a deep breath and have a few moments of presence. And we are in the chapter called The Great Karmic Warehouse, and I'll be reading today from the section titled From Being to Doing to Having. The human equation was always meant to be like this: to move from being to doing to having. This means we were never meant to act in order to find fulfillment. Fulfillment was seen as an inner condition. It could not be pursued externally. We act in order to express our fulfillment, not to acquire it. We act in order to celebrate our inner completeness, not to pursue it. For most people, however, this simple equation is reversed. Most people do in order to be. They act because they feel incomplete. Their action is prompted by a desire to acquire something or to enhance their identity in some way. This is the ancient hunter-gatherer impulse, which still endures in human beings. It is the need to act in order to accumulate, whether it is physical, emotional, intellectual satisfaction. It is action impelled by a desire to augment themselves, to become more than what they are. They act in order to have. They have in order to be. This is tragic. So what stood out to me in that paragraph there was our inner completeness. We act in order to celebrate our inner completeness, not to pursue it. I can certainly relate to the mention of this being in reverse, where there is a pursuit to accumulate, to achieve. to have a physical, emotional, or intellectual satisfaction, to add something to oneself. The word used here is augment, but whether it's change or add, whether it's a job or more money, a car, or it could be social status, friendships, or adding people to your life to add to your identity. And just to repeat the last line of the paragraph, they act in order to have, they have in order to be, and this is tragic. Versus the reverse of this, where we begin from our being, our inner completeness, where nothing is needed. There isn't anything missing from that state of presence. Action may arise, movements will be seen, but there's no pursuit. You're at the finish line already. There's nothing to chase. And the author shares here a little bit about themselves. They're talking about acquiring, that most people already have a clear sense of what they want, whether it's physical possessions, some sort of emotional state. An example says here that if someone wants to earn fame, so they might get into the movies or write a book, for instance. And this becomes their identity. And from there could be a sense of, okay, now I'm complete, or now I'm closer to that completion, now I have this job title, this fame. It's now some sort of movement towards that inner completeness, which is, of course, not correct. Similarly, someone else wants to acquire the status of sportsman or politician or businessman. People even go around calling themselves golfers. I play golf and write books and ride motorcycles, but I am not a golfer, an author, or a biker. I am not doing in order to acquire an identity. The way I am is untouched by what I do. I am not a yogi because I teach yoga. It is not my activity that makes me a yogi. It is my being that makes me a yogi. Yogi is a description of my inner condition, not my activity. When you live like this, who you are always communicates itself in its own subtle way to people. The fragrance of who you are always gets conveyed. People sense that I am operating from this place of inner freedom, even if they don't understand how it works. Very young people come up to me and treat me like their contemporary, or even their close friend. They call me Sadhguru, but it is not a term of distant reverence. It is one of familiarity, of affection. So moving on to the last couple of paragraphs here. There is the mention of memory, and anything that comes from memory spells karmic bondage. So memory is conditioning, habits. It says here, I do not come from a place of karma, so I do not breed karma. So this is Sadhguru talking about himself, I believe. I do not come from a place of karma, so I do not breed karma. So what does it mean, I do not come from a place of karma? It means acting from presence. There's aliveness in the action. And it could be a similar action that happened the day before or the week before, but the quality of the action is different. It's how something is done. So, coming from that place of presence, complete awareness in the doing, almost as if it's been done for the first time. There is that great awareness there. Alignment. And there's no memory. Even if it's an action that's been done many times before, it is an alive action, not a passive action. And it says here, it is as simple as that. What I say comes from inner experience, from a state of knowing, not from previously acquired knowledge. And this is contentless intelligence. The one thing that human beings simultaneously suffer and cherish is memory. You try to acquire and freeze memory in order to acquire an identity. You are trying, therefore, to do in order to be. But neither your identity nor your memory is essentially about you. And you being the awareness, the now. And Sadhguru prompts you, it says here, think about it, to reflect upon this as well. And you can check this for ourselves, going into that present space. And you can know that that space, there are no labels for that. We can come up with labels now, the I am, the deep I think Eckhart uses that. But you can begin to see the contrast on a very simple level. The activity of identity, always trying to be maintained. Fear of losing the identity, losing the job title or losing the money, becoming bankrupt. If you feel like you're losing yourself because you're seeing yourself in those temporary forms. when truthfully you haven't gone anywhere. When the money comes and goes, or the job comes and goes, you are there, watching it. And there's an example here which I'll summarize as well. It's about being in a cafe and drinking your coffee. There is mention here that it doesn't matter how much is in your bank account, whether you have $10 or $10 billion. The money only exists in your memory. You can only think about the money. You cannot enjoy all of that money in that one moment. It's just you and the cup of coffee, and then the memory of money. And to carry money around in your memory means you are a creature of the past. So if there's that reminder of the identity labels, I am XYZ, I'm a billionaire, or I'm an engineer. If you're carrying around that in your head, then you are a creature of the past. You are delving into memory. And this is why faces around us are becoming so grave. The grave is, after all, the abode of the past. And that is karma too, a habitat of the past. Your actionable karma in the future ensures that your future is exactly like your past. When nothing new happens to you, it is time to rest in peace. So it brings us to the end of that section. So again, reading from the title, From Being to Doing to Having, this chasing, this the formula is there, is actually acting from our space of awareness, our beingness, taking action from there versus the reverse of it. And you can see where memory fits into that, the conditioning of trying to achieve and add the egoic nature of more forms, more, it's not enough, I need to, or the fear of not losing something, holding on to something in order to maintain a label, maintain the memory, carrying that with you. Or are you simply weightless? And we could take the example of drinking the coffee again. I know Eckhart sometimes gives an extreme example of, you could have 50 pence in your pocket. So you can imagine you're drinking your coffee, that's all you have, 50 pence in your pocket. You don't have any more money, no possessions. But in that moment, drinking the coffee, you are simply present. You are not carrying the label of, someone who's poor, or any other labels you may have about the little me. I'm no good, I failed again. In that moment, if you weren't operating from memory, you'd perhaps sense the comfort of the chair. Perhaps you'd be aware of the ambience of the cafe. Maybe it's a quiet hum of conversation in the background. and you're there with your cup of coffee, not carrying a label, no, in that moment, no problem. Once you leave the cafe, maybe perhaps a challenge will present itself. Maybe a thought form will appear about, okay, what am I going to do for dinner? I have 50 pence in your pocket. Then perhaps from that spaciousness will come action that's needed. And perhaps we can invite ourselves to notice if we are carrying around labels. And for me personally, this could mean mental health. I've got various diagnoses, autism or depression, anxiety. Am I, I of course carry those around with me. Every moment remind myself, oh yeah, I'm autistic or I am depressed. And by dropping those labels or from acting from presence, it's not negating that they're there when they're needed. Perhaps there's an important time where that label is needed to be communicated to somebody else, and then an understanding can transpire. It might be a bit of a shortcut. But while I'm drinking my coffee, if I'm in a cafe, I don't have to remind myself that, oh yes, I'm not, not working, or I am this, or I am that. I'm a podcaster, or all of these labels. In that moment, there's the freedom, just drinking the coffee, experiencing the coffee. No memory of past. And so you can see how that fits into the chapter of the great karmic warehouse, where you're now acting from beingness. Action is taking place and things may accumulate on their own from that, but it's not a means to an end of doing to have. It's also perhaps a bit of a gentle invitation to just begin with something simple. Again, the example there is drinking a hot beverage, drinking a hot drink, but I've often referred to, the making a cup of tea. Start with something small and easy to add presence to that action. So there's no karmic resonance, more karmic imprints added on top of that. And everything is done in a clean and natural way. It's the nature of being in the present moment, our own nature. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I wish you well, and I'll speak to you again very soon.